Hello and welcome to India's World. Today we are discussing the crisis in Nepal and whether we can now see light at the end of the tunnel of a political impasse. Now this political impasse itself is a result of several things. The life of the Constituent Assembly in Nepal ran out. There was a caretaker government headed by Dr. Baburam Bhattarai, a Maoist leader, which thought it could lead Nepal into an election under its leadership. But the non-Maoist political parties didn't want that. So the president of Nepal, Mr. Rambaran Yadav, asked them to form a national government, a consensus government. The political parties could not reach a consensus. They could not even choose a prime minister. Now finally, recently, they've decided that the Chief Justice of Nepal would lead a government, an election government, consisting of technocrats. Now people think that this could lead to an end to the political crisis in Nepal. There would be another election to a Constituent Assembly and maybe a new Nepal would come into being. Now to discuss this issue with me, I have two remarkable individuals with me. I have with me Professor S.D. Muni. He's called a Muni. He really is a sage, an extremely wise person who's regarded as an expert on international affairs, not only in India but also elsewhere. In Nepal particularly, he's played a seminal role in bringing the Maoists to the negotiating table, and he was also a teacher of Dr. Baburam Bhattarai in JNU. And we have with us Mr. D.P. Tripathi, Member of Parliament from the Nationalist Congress Party, known to his friends as DPT. DPT has also handheld the Maoists and the non-Maoist political parties and got them together so that the Maoists could come to the mainstream. So welcome both of you to our studios. We are very lucky to have you here. Let me begin with you, Dr. Muni. Now, do you think the election government under the Chief Justice of Nepal would be able to solve the political crisis in Nepal?
Well, if they can hold the elections, the rest should be left to what people throw out in that elections. And I think the political crisis would be resolved essentially by the product or the outcome of the elections, not by the Chief Justice. The whole question is that since the political parties could not get together to hold elections, how to hold them, whether to hold them, whether it is for again Constituent Assembly, how many members to go in there, these are the issues which are still in a way hanging because they have not been sorted out. And if the parties can sort it out and entrust the responsibility to the Chief Justice, I think it is possible that, this is a caretaker arrangement. This is not a political resolution arrangement. And if this caretaker arrangement can successfully hold a free and fair elections, then I think Nepalis and the world around would know who people want and what kind of a new arrangement would be there to address the political problems.
Yes. DPT, let me ask you this. This proposal for Chief Justice Regmi taking over as a caretaker Prime Minister actually came out of the party convention of the Maoists. So the proposal actually was a single party proposal initially, and then the four big parties, the Nepali Congress, the UML, United Marxist-Leninist Party, the Maoists themselves, and the Samyukt Jantantric, Loktantrik Madhesi Morcha, Tarai people, Tarai parties, they all agreed to it. But there are differences within the Nepali Congress and the UML over Chief Justice Regmi, and the Chief Justice is aware of it. So he says that, look, how do you expect me to hold an election in time when there is no consensus within yourselves about my being a caretaker Prime Minister, and without him having the full support of all the political parties?
See, all this emerged not merely as a single party proposal. I was present in the Maoist Party Congress at Hatauda on the 2nd of February. Yeah. And I heard Prachand's speech also, yeah, where he proposed the idea of Chief Justice heading the election government. Yeah. When President Dr. Rambaran Yadav wanted political parties to agree on a national government with a consensus to hold elections of the Constituent Assembly, the idea emanated from there. Various civil society groups started discussing that you should have an independent person who is acceptable to all political parties, because political parties are not able to agree on one person as Prime Minister. So there should be somebody on which they agree, these political parties. Now, once the idea about Chief Justice came up, Justice Regmi wants that political parties should strongly back him, number one. Number two, there are many constitutional positions, as you are aware, in Nepal, which are now vacant. Election commissioners, judges, various government organizations, investigative agencies. So, any government can run only when political parties agree on all these appointments. Now, there is a crisis because still there is no agreement properly. All the senior leaders of 4 major political parties, Maoist, Nepali Congress, CPN UML and Madhesi parties, they met the constitutional and legal experts, the former attorney generals, eminent advocates of the Supreme Court, all that. There also the conclusion was that the constitutional experts and others suggested that there must be some understanding and political parties must back this election government fully.
Okay, so let's assume they back Chief Justice Regmi. But what happens, Professor Muni, if this caretaker government is unable to hold elections?
No, the problem would arise from what DPT is saying. The one issue which is still unresolved is that the political parties, while agreeing to Chief Justice, also want to manage and control him during the process of election. I'll tell you what the real problem to my mind is. The real problem is what happens in the elections. And there are political parties which are not confident of going to the elections. Therefore, the whole struggle so far was that we must be in the government while we are going in the elections so that our fortunes can be improved. Now, it is this crisis of confidence and the question of power after the elections which is critically hanging on the minds of most of the political parties. The idea of an independent caretaker government was floated much earlier. For instance, I remember that Devendra Raj Pandey's name was being floated, Daman Dungana's name was being floated. And they did not agree on it because everybody wanted one's own, rubber stamp.
Okay, I need to take a break at this juncture. We'll take a short break and continue with this interesting discussion. Don't go away. Welcome back. We are discussing the political crisis in Nepal and whether there's going to be an end to the impasse in Nepal. Now, DPT, let me ask you this. Now, this caretaker election government of Chief Justice Regmi was supposed to have one fixed term. And already the Chief Justice is demanding that you remove this term, one fixed term. And political parties are saying, all right, we'll give you one more term. So the government hasn't even been formed and people are already preparing for its failure?
No. You see, so many governments have failed in Nepal. Therefore, they have to agree to make this government successful. Successful in which sense? What Dr. Muni was saying is elections are the only proper solution of the political impasse in Nepal. There is no other way. Exactly. I don't see any other way. In a multi-party democracy, if you agree, and there has been a great advance in the recently held party convention of the Maoists, where they have brought in their political document the idea of democracy in the political resolution, which is very significant. And all other parties must agree, especially the major parties, that elections be held. Elections can be held either in June, first week, or
latest
by June, or maybe, I think, in October also.
Okay, no, but
because if the political parties do not agree, they have to back this election government.
Let's see if they back the government.
Like it happened in Bangladesh or on several occasions.
In Greece, it's happened. So there's international precedent.
Let
me ask you a slightly different question, Professor Muni. What are the causes of the present crisis? The Nepal crisis, is it a result of differences that cannot be reconciled on constitutional matters, on the kind of Nepal they want? Or is it because of personality differences between leaders? Some leader wants to become president, so he says, I want presidential system. Others think that, prime ministerial system is better. So is it personal egos of leaders, or is it irreconcilable subjects
I'll give you my version of it. And my version is, and I think DPT knows it very well, you know it very well, that the whole question of 2006 transformation was essentially based on an alliance between the Maoist and the Nepali Congress on creating a new Nepal. The heads were Baburam and Prachanda on the one side, and Girja Koirala on the other side.
Yeah.
Now, it was this agreement which unfortunately broke down immediately after the elections of 2008. And this coalition, I still believe that unless this coalition is made to work together, I don't see, I see a very rugged future for
Girja Prasad Koirala is no longer there.
No,
and the
that's
person
what
who has
I'm,
replaced him.
No, that's what
doesn't
I'm
have a
coming,
stature.
exactly, that's what I'm coming to. Therefore, the values which moved Girja Koirala and Prachand, both for the new Nepal, are not actually imbibed by the rest of the people in either Nepali Congress or I would say even in UML. And there were differences even in the Maoist, and as you know, Badia's group has now gone away because they did not share the kind of perspective which was there. Now, how to resolve this problem of bringing the new Nepali Congress leadership or the present Nepali Congress leadership on board with an agenda of a new Nepal, and unless you do that, I don't see a very smooth future for creating new Nepal. But essentially, most of the questions would be addressed if the two parties decide to come together.
Okay. DPT, let me ask you this. All the political parties in Nepal are agreed that Nepal must be federal, it must be a republic, and it must be democratic. But the major difference is what kind of federal Nepal? That federalism, should it be based on ethnicity? Should it be based on language? Should it be based on regional features and other considerations? So there is no agreement on what kind of federalism. So you can hold an election and people may still not agree.
No, my point is that let the elections be held. Whoever comes in majority, let them decide in consultation with the opposition what course of action Nepal should take. Now, look here. Look at the crisis. As Professor Muni has said, the 12-point agreement between the Nepali Congress as major party and the Maoists and other democratic parties is the basis for the great mass uprising of 2006, which succeeded very peacefully and democratically. But that same consensus could not continue. Secondly, my own understanding is, I don't know whether Professor Muni or you agree, sometimes even great leaders make great blunders. I think Girja Babu's decision to hold elections without completion of the peace process was a major blunder. That created major problems later on.
Yeah, but
because let me just complete. Look at this experience. I don't think anywhere in the world there was a constituent assembly elected which extended its term and could not complete the constitution.
Yes, but
could not draft the constitution.
Yeah, but there is an issue of federalism that in the hilly areas of Nepal, you want to have ethnic provinces, ethnicity as a principle. But in Madhes, ethnicity is given the go-by and you say it's either language or terrain. So you can't have two different principles for two different parts of Nepal for federalism. And clearly this issue, agitates people. It agitates people of the hills because they think Madhes can completely block them if there is one province. So they talk of 5 provinces. The Madhesis, the people of Tarai, think that there should be either one or only 2 provinces. So this is a difference that's not going to be easy to reconcile.
No, you are right, Bharat. But I think I'll take DPT's argument further, which is absolutely valid. The federalism to be defined after the elections, not before the elections. Because if it could be defined before the elections, it would have been defined by now. Since the parties have utterly failed, and you are absolutely right, that you cannot have a new federalism without incorporating the identity issue. How you incorporate is a matter of details. If all the parties are agreeing on this, let them go to the elections, and since the election would be for Constituent Assembly, and I would prefer it for Constituent Assembly rather than another parliament, the Constituent Assembly so elected must be empowered and would naturally be empowered to go into the nitty-gritties of how many provinces you should have or what kind of provinces you should have. So all major issues, which you said very rightly, are dividing the present political confabulation.
Will be resolved through elections.
Will be resolved only through elections. Therefore, the only mandate you have to give to the Chief Justice is to hold elections, nothing else.
All right. At this point, we need to take a short break. We'll continue this interesting discussion after the break. Don't go away. Welcome back. We're discussing the political crisis in Nepal and the way out of the current political impasse. Professor Muni, let me ask you this. Elections, you say, are the only solution. the election will be held, a new constituent assembly will come, new in quotes, because its size is different. It's a much smaller assembly than the previous one. Now, while the political parties have agreed that this constituent assembly will own up all the peace agreements, there's still a question mark over whether it will own up to all the constitutional consensus that had been reached earlier. So do we expect a de novo debate on all those issues on which there was consensus?
No, I think the broad agreement is to start from where the last Constituent Assembly left. There is one technical problem. The technical problem is in the interim constitution, emphasis on consensus. The whole issue is that consensus has not been able, they have not been able to arrive at a consensus, largely because of the power parameters, the who should come to power or not. Therefore, I would assume that if it is possible, the new Constituent Assembly should be kept free and liberated from this hangover of consensus. Because even in last time, you know, the Maoist and many others said that all right, on each issue, go to the voting in Constituent Assembly, decide who is having majority, and that's the end of it. Yeah. If you don't follow that principle, you are again caught in the same rut, that you have everybody along with you. Yeah. Either the parties will come along with you or they would not come along with you. And democracy is based essentially on majority, not on consensus. Yes.
You know, let me ask you, taking off from Professor what Muni is saying, Professor Muni is saying, you know, democracy is not based on consensus. But, you know, conflict resolution ultimately has to be based on consensus. So is election the only way of resolving conflicts, or in addition to the election, you also need political consensus on what kind of government to form, what kind of new peace agreements to enter into? Because majority decision has to, at some point, at least in constitution making, has to be backed by consensus of some kind.
Yes, but remember one thing, that consensus does not mean unanimity. There's a misconception about it. Consensus means a broad understanding on certain issues. Now, which are the issues? Issues are a multi-party democracy, a constitution for that, which will be made by the Constituent Assembly. Now, these are the issues. For that, you need election. Yeah. Election where all political parties agree under the government headed by the Chief Justice. So, you have a broad understanding, and then let that Constituent Assembly decide on the form of government, on the tenure of the government, term of the government, you know, what are various modalities of federalism and various organizational political aspects of government of Nepal.
Okay, but Professor Muni, is a free and fair election possible in Nepal today when there is so much mistrust, political parties are fragmented, and there is complete ideological polarization in that society?
Well, that's why the interim arrangement. That's why you cannot trust any of the political parties to deliver a free and fair elections to you. So you go to the Chief Justice, and this again is internationally accepted norm, that Chief Justices are supposed to be above and away from executives or whatever else it is. So assuming, now if Nepal is bound for ill luck, nobody can say what will really happen. But this is the only visible hope, that you have an interim arrangement, leave it to the Chief Justice to pick up his team, maybe two from each nomination, so whatever else it is, hold the elections. Just pressurize. I think the President and the political parties must only request him that please hold a fair elections and let us see what happens out of the elections.
Are political parties ready for elections? Take the case of the Maoists. The Maoist party is split. You have the Mohan Baidya faction, which will challenge you know, these people in western Nepal. The Madhesis are badly fragmented. They can't go back to their constituents because they've done nothing for their constituents even after 6 years of the Madhes movement. So two big political formations don't seem ready for elections.
See, the major political parties have no option but to agree for elections. And how people decide in democracy? Only through elections.
No, and Bharat, my version is that it is actually the UML and NC which is not ready for elections. Okay. If the Maoists were not ready for elections, why would they name this alternative? Okay. And the Madhes parties have endorsed this. Yes. So Madhes and Maoists are willing to go. Baidya would go to the elections because they know they will get some of the votes from the parent party.
No, they have also
Yes.
said, after the formation of their party, Mohan Vaidya said that we are not going back to the armed struggle.
That's true.
He
And
said it.
therefore,
So
real
it is not
problem
that
is
they
with
have denied
This
the
is a very
democratic
interesting
process.
NC and
Yeah.
UML.
Yeah.
And I think they are the one who are not confident because they have lost their touch with the constituencies. In the last 2 years, I think
So
both
that is why they are opposing the Chief Justice of Nepal.
they are
as,
opposing everything except that election be held under our leadership.
Okay.
What they want is that the Nepali Congress be the Prime Minister, UML should join it so that they are in power and they can get
So
some
the
of,
obstruction is really from the non-Maoist, non-Madhesi parties.
in my understanding.
Okay.
I may be wrong, but that is how I see it. Because if the Maoists did not want elections, why would they give this alternative or option
point
at all?
taken. DPT, what should India be doing under these circumstances to facilitate stability in Nepal and transformation of Nepalese society towards multi-party democracy, a republic, a secular republic?
I think India must support the view of political parties in holding elections, and the idea of the election government, the interim government, to hold elections, and about stability and stability in Nepal. There is one point which very seldom made in India. I think Professor Muni in one of his articles made that
We are
point.
running out of time. You have to tell me quickly.
Yeah, very quickly. There has been a long tradition of armed struggle in Nepal. It is not only the Maoists who have done
that
it,
is true.
even Nepali Congress has done it. So now they have to agree on a multi-party democracy, and as I always maintain, every country's politics has not merely its ground and background, they have their rainbow also. So that rainbow of Nepali politics has to emerge beautifully through the understanding.
Let's hope so. Now, let me ask the last word to you. What is it that India should not do under the present circumstances? Because often we do things which end up messing up things in Nepal. What should we not do?
We should not have any political preference of ours so far as Nepal is concerned, or non-preference of ours, let me put it this way. And we should actually leave it to the Nepali people to decide what kind of a next constituent assembly they want to throw it up, and we should respect the people's verdict there and follow that sincerely.
Okay, thank you very much. I thank both of you for coming to our studios and sharing your analysis of Nepal with our viewers. I hope you will come again to our studios. I look forward to having you here. That's all we have for you today. We'll be back again next week with another issue. Till then, goodbye.